It's a quiet crisis, unfolding, not with a crash, but with a slow, suffocating squeeze. One that's quietly locking more than 100 million Americans out of the dream of homeownership. In a country where real estate has long stood as the bedrock of middle-class wealth, we are now in the midst of a profound affordability crisis. Right now, the median priced home in the United States sits at $459,826. And yet, the median household income is around $84,200. That means that for 75% of American families, owning a home is no longer a matter of saving for a down payment. It's mathematically impossible. If you take that average mortgage at a still relatively conservative 6% interest rate, the monthly payment on a $460,000 home with 20% down begins to consume 47% of a median earner's gross income. That's nearly half of every paycheck. And that, by any reasonable definition, is not sustainable. Financial planners have long advised that housing costs should stay within a 28 to 30% threshold of gross income. What we're seeing today isn't just a breach of that guideline. It's a demolition of it. This isn't just about interest rates. This is about a structural imbalance that has been building for decades, fueled by decades of wage stagnation and a housing market that has run far ahead of economic reality. Let's look at the numbers. Since the year 2000, U.S. home values have surged by 197% median household income. That's up just 40%. Think about that. Incomes have moved, but homes have exploded. 24 years ago, the average American home cost about 4 times the median income. Today, it's over 5 times in cities like Los Angeles. That multiplier has exploded to 11. For every dollar median income has grown, home prices have sprinted 10 lengths ahead. This is not a market correcting toward equilibrium. This is a market detaching from fundamentals entirely driven less by supply and demand and more by speculation. Low interest rates and persistent housing shortages. This divergence is the definition of a bubble, not in its burst phase, but in its long, grinding unwind. And nowhere was that unwind more dramatically accelerated than during the pandemic. Between 2020 and 2025, U.S. home prices rose by 45.3%. That's more than a decade's worth of normal appreciation compressed into 5 years. And it happened because 2 forces collided. First, the Federal Reserve slashed mortgage rates to historic lows, below 3% on 30-year loans. That made borrowing outrageously cheap. Second, millions of remote workers, suddenly untethered from office buildings in New York or San Francisco, began relocating to once affordable Sunday Belt cities like Austin, Phoenix, Boise, and select parts of Florida. The demand spike was instant, brutal, and highly concentrated. Bidding wars erupted. Homes sold in days, sometimes hours. In some markets, prices jumped 30%, even 50% in a single year. But wages didn't follow. The value wasn't being created. It was being transferred into asset prices, into real estate speculation, and into the pockets of those who already owned. Now, that era of distorted calm is over. And what has replaced it is something far more insidious, a frozen market. After inflation surged to 1% in 2022, the Fed reversed course aggressively. Mortgage rates climbed above 7% by 2024. And that shift created what analysts now call the double squeeze. On one side are existing homeowners. More than 62% of them are locked into mortgage rates below 4%. For them, walking away from a 5% loan to buy a new home at 7% is financial suicide. They are quite literally chained in place. Meanwhile, potential buyers are facing prices set at pandemic highs, but borrowing costs that have doubled. Take a $400,000 home. In 2020, the monthly payment was about $1,700 today. It's $2,660, a 56% increase for the exact same house. And with no equity accumulation for recent buyers, that extra $960 a month goes straight to the lender. The result: existing home sales have plunged to 30-year lows. The market is frozen, not collapsed, but paralyzed. Too expensive to buy, too risky to sell. Inventory is tighter than it should be, not because of scarcity, but because homeowners are hiding from the cost of repricing. And beneath the surface, in some of the former boomtowns, the correction has already begun. While national indices may suggest stability, localized implosions are underway. In Denver, 91% of homes are now trading below their peak. In Austin, it's 89%, Phoenix, Sacramento, Dallas, between 87% and 88%. The average price decline from peak is 9.7%. That may sound modest compared to the 27% crash in 2008, but the pain is more personal this time. These aren't homes bought in a frenzy of speculation. Many of these buyers were young families, first-time owners, people who believed they were investing in stability. And now, with values down and high closing costs absorbed into their original purchase, their equity has been gutted. A buyer in Denver who put $100,000 down may now have only $40,000 left in net equity, a 60% loss on their initial investment before they even moved in. But beyond price, there is another threat rising, one that could make entire regions uninsurable, effectively worthless. Florida is a case study in this new risk economy. Tampa, for instance, trades at a 56% premium to its historical valuation. But the real crisis isn't just price, it's insurance. The average Florida homeowner now pays $6,350 a year in property insurance, over $4,000 more than the national average. That's not a line item. That's a mortgage payment in itself. And it's soaring because insurers are collapsing or fleeing the state. Hurricanes Ian and Milton didn't just damage homes. They shattered balance sheets. Add to that a plague of litigation abuse, particularly around assignment of benefits lawsuits. And the insurance market has become unworkable. Citizens Property Insurance, the state's insurer of last resort, now holds over 772,000 policies, but it is catastrophically underfunded. One major storm could bankrupt the entire system. Even if home prices fall 10% or 20%, the total cost of ownership, mortgage, taxes, insurance, and potential special assessments can still reach $3,500 to $4,000 per month. That requires a household income of $150,000 or more. Florida's median income, $67,000. California faces a similar fate, but with fire instead of flood. Wildfires don't come with tracking cones on a map. They explode with little warning, and insurers are fleeing. State Farm, Allstate, and others have stopped writing new policies across vast swaths of the state. The FAIR Plan, the last resort for California homeowners, now carries risk exposure of $650 billion, double what it was just a few years ago. Regulations have blocked insurers from using modern climate risk models or fully pricing in reinsurance costs, which means they can't charge what the risk warrants. So they exit. Entire foothill communities, Paradise, Santa Barbara, Napa have become nearly uninsurable. If you live there, your policy can be canceled overnight. Your rates can triple with a single alert. And when fire does come, recovery is uncertain, if not impossible. This isn't just a real estate issue. It's a threat to insurable society itself. And then there are the Sunday Belt boom towns, Austin, Phoenix, Boise's, still reeling from their pandemic hangover. Austin saw prices jump over 40%. Yet now, 89% of homes are below peak. Its economy is heavily reliant on one sector, tech. And as the job market cools and remote work normalizes, demand is evaporating. Phoenix boomed from $350,000 to over $500,000 in median price. But under its surface, the Colorado River continues to dry up. Lake Mead's water levels are declining. The city faces a mega drought that isn't cyclical, it's structural. Can you build a future on sand and scarce water? Boise doubled prices in just 3 years, but its economy was never diversified. Now, as remote workers return to cities or move on, there's a reverse migration. These markets are in no man's land. Too expensive for locals, not dynamic enough to attract new buyers. They're overbuilt, overpriced, and overexposed to risks that most investors still don't price in. And all of this leads to a critical misunderstanding: what it truly costs to own a home. Most home buyers focus only on the mortgage, but that's just the starting point. On a $460,000 home at 6% with 20% down, the mortgage is about $2,200 a month. Add property taxes at 15%, that's another $440. Insurance, between $200 and $500, depending on where you live. Utilities, $200 to $300. And maintenance, that 1 to 2% of home value annually, adds $380 to $765 per month. Put it all together, and your total cost of ownership is $3,400 to $4,000 per month. Annually, that's nearly $48,000. And to keep that under the 28% affordability rule, your household income needs to exceed $171,000. This is the moment many buyers realize they've been sold a fantasy. Lenders will approve them for far more. But affordability isn't about what they'll allow. It's about what you can truly bear. So what's the way forward? The advice from seasoned investors and long-term thinkers, people who built wealth not through timing, but through discipline, is clear. Buy what you can truly afford, not what a bank says you can borrow. Limit housing costs to no more than 25% of gross income. Be location flexible, look beyond the headlines. Cities like Pittsburgh, with a median home price of $225,000, Cleveland, and Oklahoma City offer not just affordability, but stable, rational markets grounded in local economies, not speculative hype. Assume appreciation of 3% annually, not 10%. Treat your home as a place to live, not a vehicle for riches. Pre-approve conservatively. Decide what you're comfortable with before you talk to a lender. And if ownership doesn't pencil out, rent. In high-cost areas, the spread between renting and buying can be $2,000 a month or more. Invest that difference in a diversified portfolio. And over 10 years, it could grow into $400,000 or more. That's real wealth, not phantom equity in an overvalued house in a high-risk zone. The warning is clear: avoid broken markets. Places where climate risk, insurance chaos, or speculation have broken the fundamental economics of homeownership. And when in doubt, wait. Patience is not passive. It is power. Because the greatest risk today isn't that prices will crash. In fact, a 2008 style collapse is unlikely. Underwriting is stricter. Equity is higher. Homeowners have more skin in the game. No, the real danger is making a life-altering decision in a market that is not built to last. Buying a home should be about safety, stability, and long-term value, not fear of missing out. And that brings us to the central principle: value is what you get. Price is what you pay. That idea, simple, timeless, and ruthlessly logical, will separate the wise from the wrecked in the years ahead. Because in 2026, as in every other year, the winner isn't the one who bought the most, but the one who paid the least for what they truly needed.